Hello and welcome back to the cutting room. We're still John, Westy and Matt. Matty 2 times.
Think so. Matty 2 times, yeah.
Still here.
I've still got no nose by the
And this is part 2 of our Goodfellas analysis. You can get part 1 here if you've not seen it yet, where we talk about what the film means to us and the director. And in this part, we're getting into the writing of the film and the cast, aren't we?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes, we are.
So let's get into it then. Next up,
Okay.
the writing. Goodfellas was co-written by Martin Scorsese and Nicholas Pileggi. Scorsese's third writing credit after Who's That Knocking at My Door and Mean Streets, and it was Nicholas Pileggi's debut as a screenwriter. So, how did they do as a writing team, Westy?
Based on the past experience, incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, just so good. There's an authenticity to this and a realistic feel to the dialogue.
Yeah. We always called each other Goodfellas. Like you'd say to somebody, he's a good fella, he's one of us.
This could be done without any dialogue whatsoever. This could be a silent film and you'd still kind of get it. But I think a lot of it, because a lot of it was improvised by the characters, and a lot of it was championed by Scorsese. And one of the scenes that stands out to me was when Sonny Buns talks to Paulie, and he's complaining about Tommy. He's just like, well, yeah, no, what the fuck?
Tommy taking over this fucking joint is like putting a silk hat on a pig.
He said, just add more. And Paulie's just like,
what am I gonna do? What do you want from me?
it's just brilliant. It's just beautifully done. It's so good. And like the voiceover is incredibly written. Even just like there's some lines where the sign-off lines that I call them are just so good.
If they had been wise guys, I wouldn't have heard a thing. I would have been dead.
It's just so good and so rich and so compelling and brilliant. I mean, 321 times, an average of 2 times per minute. And Pesci says half of them.
Fuck you, pay me. Fuck you, pay me. Fuck you, pay me.
Love the dialogue. It's fucking great.
It was a record at the time, I think, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
Been.
Wolf of Wall Street brought it. I think Wolf of Wall Street's number 3 now.
Yeah, I mean, considering how inexperienced Scorsese and Pileggi were as screenwriters, I think they do an astonishing job.
Yeah, unbelievable.
And what I'm going to talk about is the script as a book-to-movie adaptation. So the novel Wise Guy is a pretty big, sprawling book that covers 25 years of the real Henry Hill's life. And what's surprising is just how faithful an adaptation the film is. Aside from one major sequence,
funny how
everything that happens in the film is in the book and is almost always almost exactly like it's described in the book. Even smaller moments like Henry blowing up the rival cab stand to put them out of business, or Tuddy threatening the mailman when he says,
In the fucking oven, you're gonna go ahead first.
which is hilarious.
You love that bit. Like, you're straight on the group when you're watching it. Love that bit.
Laughing your head off.
Scorsese does that though as well, because Shutter Island's really to the letter.
Yeah, it is.
As well,
Right.
if you read the novel.
Right. And Henry's narration, it's amazing just how much of that's taken directly from words spoken by the real Henry when Nicholas Pileggi interviewed him for the book. And what Scorsese and Pileggi do a great job with is understanding it's not just about putting the biggest moment from the book on the screen. It's obviously about telling a story. There's one storyline in the novel, the 70s scandal where they paid players of the Boston College basketball team to shave points. It's the biggest scheme Henry was involved with after Lufthansa, and it's dropped from the film entirely, which was the right choice because it would have unbalanced things.
Doesn't Maury mention that at some point?
He says one line about it, yeah.
Hear about the points we were shaving up in Boston?
Yeah, that's a reference to that, but it's not in the film in terms of a
Right.
story.
Yeah. He does mention it. Yeah, got you.
But an extraordinary source novel, and Scorsese and Nicholas Pileggi do a very good job in reining the whole thing in to form a 2-hour, 26-minute movie. Just fantastic.
Yeah.
And Matt, how's the writing for you?
I think it's incredible. And what stands out for me is that authenticity of it, because this is something you can feel the depth of research and the amount of knowledge that's in there, and you get it in so many scenes. Like one of my very favourite scenes is when Henry introduces us to all those gangsters in the Bamboo Lounge, because those names are outrageously good. Frankie Carbone starts off pretty normal, but then you got Fat Andy, Freddie No-Nose, Nicky Eyes, Jimmy 2 times.
I'm gonna go get the papers.
They're so good, those names. They feel like they should be a parody of themselves, but they're not. Each name I just go, yeah, I'll track that, yeah. I believe that guy. That's totally a name. And it's the same in the wedding scene where Karen gets her voice over and she can't believe how many Peters and Pauls there are in Paulie's family. It's really funny. And how they're all married to Marie's.
it was unbelievable.
Oh, it's Paulie Jr., my nephew, and this is Petey.
And that's just such a cool little detail to get in there. Which
And Paulie gets mixed up as well. He's like, this is big. No, it's Paulie. I can't keep track.
There's too many. In a contrast so well, that scene later on where she's talking about the wives, how they've all got bad skin and too much makeup. Again, just something you wouldn't think about, but it's in there. But lastly, though, it's that obsession with food. Like, when they go to prison, practically the first thing they do is set up a kitchen with lobster, red wine so they can make proper sauce. And Paulie's tip for slicing garlic, that is unreal. Like, everyone who's seen Goodfellas now slices their garlic that way, I guarantee it.
I use that all the time.
So the food is so important. I have to say, as any food in cinema looked as appetizing as those sausages Paulie is frying up at the end when Henry goes to see him. They look incredible.
It's when they bring the meatballs over as well. And I haven't even seen Scorsese's mum's spaghetti, but I wanted it. How much ketchup does he put on when he's like,
He loves it.
Lords of delicious. This is delicious.
It is, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, right, it's just brilliant, but it's all about those small details for me. That really brings it alive.
Absolutely.
So, Goodfellas is based on Wise Guy by Nicholas Pileggi, which you said there, John, which was published in 1985. So what Scorsese liked is that it wasn't all about the made men, it was about the people at the lower levels, which I think is really obvious. Yeah. And Scorsese called Pileggi as soon as he'd finished the book and said, I've been waiting for this book my entire life. And Pileggi said, I've been waiting for this phone call my entire life. And I think that's just one of the nicest back and forths I've ever heard in my fucking life. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. I mean, it's no wonder Scorsese wanted to adapt it. Henry Hill lived a life so extraordinary that it required next to no embellishment to turn it into a Hollywood film.
Yeah.
He said, he's going to give you $500,000. I say, okay. Another fucking payday, you know. I mean, seriously, $500,000.
And I know Wesley's already mentioned the improv, but there were some other bits that really stand out for me. It's also improvised. So the dinner scene, Tommy's mother's house, that was almost entirely improvised. And obviously that's Catherine Scorsese playing Tommy's mother. So Scorsese just said to her, look, your son and his friends are coming for dinner and you want to cook for them. That's your scene.
Get yourself a girl so you could settle down. That's what I
settle down almost every night, but then in the morning I'm free. I love you. I want to be with you.
That painting that Tommy's mother gets out.
Look at this.
That's amazing. I love that so much. I want that.
Looks like a guy we know.
Yeah.
It's him without the beard. Jesus Christ.
It was actually in real life painted by Nicholas Pileggi's mother.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Was it based on a National Geographic?
That's right, yeah,
picture?
that's right, yeah.
Yeah.
One dog goes one way, one dog goes the other way. I love it.
It's like, it's beautiful. Look at the dogs, beautiful. It's like bigging it up.
See what you say, Tommy.
It's absolutely brilliant.
Absolutely love it. So another one is Tommy shooting Spider. That was all improvised apart from one line.
Fuck, you know that?
The only scripted line is when Spider says,
why don't you go fuck yourself, Tommy?
Yeah, which is obvious, yeah.
The one line he shouldn't have said.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I bet he didn't want to either. He's looking at the script, he's like, everything else is class. Oh, for fuck's sake, I'm going to say it. I love that. I love De Niro's reaction. He's like, whoa! Hey, this is for you. Don't take shit off anyone. But I feel like it's De Niro who eggs him on. He's like, you're going to let him get away with this?
Yeah, he does.
He kind of got away with it, really.
Tommy's
He
just sitting
kept going.
silently fuming. Yeah, it's awful.
Yeah, furious.
And then another improv one where Paulie confronts Henry when Henry's come out of prison. That slap, that was improvised by Sorvino, and that's why Liotta looks like really quite surprised by it. Wasn't expecting it.
Yeah, apparently what Scorsese would do was encourage the actors to improvise and then take the bits he liked and put it back into the script for the next day.
Right, yeah.
Right.
Also, Paulie, do you think he looks like Baron Greenback from Danger Mouse?
Soon their Prime Minister will be a gibbering buffoon.
Never see them in the same room, do you?
Oh, God, what a fucking reference. Jesus Christ. Baron Greenback from Danger Mouse. Haven't thought about him for a good 35 years.
The screenplay for Goodfellas may have been the first time collaboration between Scorsese and Nicholas Pileggi, but doesn't feel like it, I don't think.
No.
Not at all. No. It feels like they've been writing together for about 20 years.
Yeah, it really does.
There's a big wider cast in Goodfellas and a pretty big main cast too. Mm-hmm. We're talking about the main players now and picking one each to talk about. So who are you going for, Wesley?
Well, I got in there first, so I'm doing the big man Liotta.
Lovely.
Who is absolutely amazing in this. I can't imagine anyone else playing it. I know a few people were approached, but I'm so pleased that he got it. I know casting was over a year with several auditions, with Scorsese just trying to make sure he's getting the right role. And he's just brilliant. And his understanding of the role as well is absolutely fantastic. He said De Niro and Pesci were the glitter and he was the glue.
Yeah, lovely.
And that's exactly correct. It's his voiceover for me. It's the voiceover performance that totally makes this film what it is.
When they found Carbone in the meat truck, he was frozen so stiff it took them 2 days to thaw him out.
It's just that level of, I don't know, commitment to the part, I think. That's really, really great. And another thing as well is, like, kind of halfway through production, his mom came down with cancer and then died. And he went back, and he came back to shooting, I think, 2 days after the funeral.
Yeah.
And channeled the character to get over the grief of it and just really pushed it in. And I think it's most apparent in the pistol whipping scene. When you see him walk over, and it's just, Michael Ballas said that's the most violent scene he's ever shot and would never do anything as violent since that. But, I mean, that kid should be dead. Yeah. The amount of times he hits him, he should be dead.
No nose.
And the last words he says...
I swear my fucking mother, if you touch her again, you're dead! Oh.
It's absolutely massive, and you can tell he's channeling it. And when he turns around and he's walking back, that look on his face, he's not acting there, like, not at all. He fucking terrifies me when he's walking back. He looks like a bull looking at a red rag. Fucking, yes, and it's a wonderful performance. The Liotta performance, through the roof for me. He's never been better.
He smashes the guy's nose to shit. The sound of the gun is just brutal.
Yeah. And then he's like, hide this.
Hide this.
I gotta admit the truth. It turned me on.
That's really sexy. Hide this. I tried it, and the girl just said it. That's a bit too violent for me.
Close
it
the
didn't
door.
work. Yeah, it didn't work. Hide this. No.
Not just the acting, but his narration's really good too.
You bust the joint out. You light a match.
I know that Liotta said that he did that by talking his narration to another person in the room to make it sound more natural, which clearly worked. He was far from a shoo-in for the part, though, and some other big names were considered for the part of Henry. You know any of those names?
Tom Cruise, one of them.
Tom Cruise was discussed, I would guess, on the back of The Colour of Money, where he's very good.
Yeah.
Also, apparently, Sean Penn was considered.
Yeah, Sean Penn, I read that, yeah.
I can see that.
Alec Baldwin was considered.
Yeah.
John Travolta was considered. And whatever you think of Henry Hill, just be thankful that Nicolas Cage didn't get the part.
I couldn't think of a more horrible job if I wanted to.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have loved them to have made two versions of this just so I could see that. Like, I don't want to lose this version, but I want to see the Nicolas Cage version.
And Val Kilmer was so eager to play Henry that he made a short film to convince Scorsese to cast him.
The Fed spent so much money to hook me. They had wiretaps, surveillance, helicopters.
It did take like over a year though for Liotta to get that role because he'd sent the audition tape, but Scorsese just immediately wasn't sure about him, so he hadn't bothered watching it. And then, of all places, Liotta bumped into him at the Venice Film Festival, but at the time, Scorsese was getting a lot of death threats because this is when he'd released Last Temptation of Christ, which was obviously very controversial back then.
This is betraying the biblical Jesus, the historical Christ of the Scriptures.
So he's surrounded by bodyguards who wouldn't let Liotta anywhere near him. In Liotta's words, well, they just looked like they were going to kick the shit out of me, so he didn't get near him. But actually that worked in his favour because Scorsese was watching this and he was impressed how calm Liotta stayed because that's what he wanted for Henry, because Henry is the peacemaker in the film. He's the one who does stay calm. Yeah. So that's what convinced Scorsese to watch the audition tape, which he did like, but he still needed to convince Erwin Winkler, the producer. But then weirdly, Winkler and Liotta just happened to bump into each other at a restaurant in LA. They just got in a conversation and that convinced Winkler, who then called Scorsese and said, yeah, see what you mean, let's get him in, he's Henry.
Nice, nice. Funny, I've been to LA, I didn't bump into fucking anybody.
Yeah, Liotta's stalking everyone there, chasing people down the street.
He is.
Like,
really persistent.
Pepe Le Pew.
And once Liotta was cast, he did some prep for the role. He listened to interviews between Nicholas Pileggi and the real Henry Hill as he was driving to the set. And he wanted to meet him really badly so he could just kind of get some essence to the character. But it was the first time that Scorsese was directing him and just said, I would rather you didn't. I want you to make this character your own, which I believe he actually absolutely did. And didn't want him to be influenced by Hill at all, which is great.
Yeah, Liotta said that in those interviews, the real Henry Hill would be talking about murders and robberies while scoffing fast food.
Henry, for some reason, he just ate potato chips
the whole time.
Yeah, I've read that, yeah. Brilliant. Just casual murder.
I know, yeah. So we like Ray Liotta as Henry Hill then? His career-defining role, surely.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Love him as Henry Hill. Love him.
And Matt, who are you going to talk about in the cast?
I'm going to go for De Niro as Jimmy Conway, who and actually in real life he was called Jimmy Burke, but that had changed his name for legal reasons. And they chose Conway because that was his mother's maiden name. I think it's a very confident, very relaxed, very self-assured performance from De Niro here. And obviously he did an insane amount of preparation for it. We'll get into that in a bit. But in a way, I feel like you don't see that on screen. You just see De Niro having fun and enjoying himself. Like, you don't have the intensity of Taxi Driver. You don't have the physical transformation of Raging Bull. And that's not a criticism. It's just this is a different kind of De Niro performance. It's one where it's almost easy. And I think it's testament to how good he is as an actor. I'm not sure if I would have this as top 5 De Niro, but I think that's because he makes it look easy.
Yeah.
He's so good. I can overlook the fact that he's about 20 years too old for the role.
He couldn't have been more than 28 or 29 at the time, but he was already a legend.
Yeah.
Because I just see Jimmy the Gent having a wonderful time. Master of his own world, getting the drinks in, splashing the cast. He's like Del Boy, you go on, you have one as well. There's a tip for you, Henry. Keep the drinks coming.
Falling through the bar.
Falling through the bar.
That's a deleted scene.
Play it cool, Tommy, real cool, you know what I'm saying? Go and get your fucking shine box.
He's like the life and soul of the party. Great guy to be around, but he is still essentially like a shark in a suit. But ultimately, after the heist goes down and goes well, and Corbone and the others are spending big and showing off the car and the mink coat.
Take it off.
Like, that change from a guy who's a great laugh to be around to someone you don't want to mess with in an instant is very scary. So, yeah, brilliant, obviously. But did you know who it was originally offered to?
Who?
Pacino, of all people, but he turned it down.
Oh, Pacino. And then he did fucking Dick Tracy, didn't he? The same year.
Yeah, played Big Boy Caprice.
Big Boy Caprice, yeah. Ridiculous.
Yeah, there were some other names up for the part as well. William Peterson could have been Jimmy.
Peterson? Yeah, I read that.
John Malkovich apparently turned the role down, which is a terrible career choice.
Yeah. It would have been good as well, I think. And De Niro's method always has been, always will be, I think, apart from like Rookie and Bullwinkle, but we'll get into that later. He's a method actor. It's no different on this. I mean, when he had the money in, when Henry's a kid and he's walking around and he's impressing everyone, he's giving everybody 20s and keeping the ice cubes cold. He was kind of like, this money doesn't feel real, it's fake money. He's like, it's not real. So the production, the prop master, I think it was, at the time, gave De Niro $5,000 of his own money to pass out. And every member of the crew or on the set had to give the money back, make sure it was counted before they left the set. Like, he was that adamant about it. Doesn't feel right. It needs to feel right. But you can tell. It's great.
$5,000? How much are these prop masters getting paid?
Just give him 50.
It's probably everything he's got. It's his savings. I need it back. And also for the dinner scene at Tommy's mother's, which I've already discussed, one of my favourite bits is he'd ring up the real Henry Hill to find out how he would apply his ketchup. And he would call him 7 to 8 times a day for different things like that. How do you hold a cigarette? How did Jimmy comb his hair? How did he do this? How did he do that? And he's just like, Henry Hill's like, Jesus Christ.
How did Jimmy hold a cigarette? I thought he was a fucking nut job.
Does it need that level of attention? Of course it does. That's how good he is.
That's why he puts the ketchup on by doing that, rolling it.
Yeah.
Right.
Have you tried that? It's a fucking mess. Shit. I've tried it once. It was just, that's inedible.
So, yeah, De Niro, the method man as always, and excellent. Is Jimmy?
Yes.
Unbelievable.
Very, very good. Yeah.
It's top 5 for me, Matt, honestly.
Okay.
Has to be.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Rocky and Bullwinkle for me, obviously.
Well, we're not talking about number ones, we're talking about top 5.
You might know who we are, but we know who you are. Understand?
For my cast member, I'm going to talk about Joe Pesci as Tommy DeVito. The angriest man ever in films.
Yeah.
You fucking piece of shit!
Until Casino, where he's even angry.
Yeah. Also based on a real-life mobster called Tommy DeSimeone. The real Tommy was actually about 6'3" and in his 20s, whereas Pesci was 5'3" and in his 40s. But Henry Hill said that in terms of the character, Pesci's portrayal was about 95% accurate to the real guy.
Christ.
Which is a terrifying thought.
Fucking homicidal fucking maniac.
Imagine as someone who's massive, 6'3" with this attitude.
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
Stay away from them.
Yeah, absolutely.
They changed the surname to DeVito for legal reasons, and Tommy DeVito was actually the guitarist in the Four Seasons, who Joe Pesci knew.
Yeah.
So, not named after Danny DeVito, unfortunately.
Is that just because he was smaller?
Yeah.
You sent out all the signals.
But Pesci, though, I wouldn't go so far as saying he steals the film, but I think he certainly steals more scenes than anybody else does.
I'm trying to bang this fucking broad. You want to help me out?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not exactly a complex character. He's a total psychopath and always either on the verge of kicking off or actually kicking off. But what makes him a good character, I think, is that they also make him funny. And skating that line between violent thug and comic relief is no mean feat, but Pesci pulls it off.
What the fuck you doing? It's a joke. Put the fucking pot down. You gotta take the coffee.
I'm not sure there's anybody else out there, or many out there, that could have done it to that level. I think he's fantastic.
Yeah.
Not at the time, no.
Yeah.
They would have tipped him one way or the other. I think he's right in the middle.
Yeah.
He's absolutely brilliant.
Thing is, what John, you said there, like he was too old in real life for how old Tommy was. So because that's Scorsese, he'd actually originally offered him the part of Paulie, but Pesci was just so insistent on being Tommy, and he wore loads of makeup to convince him.
Right, and somehow that worked, even though he definitely does not look 20
I was
years.
going to say, it
in the
doesn't
film.
convince me. To be fair,
I don't. Yeah, but I don't think it's that bad. I think like he does look younger. It's not Grease. It does work.
Yeah, it does work. Of course it works. Of course it works.
And obviously, Pesci won Best Actor at the Oscars for his performance as Tommy, which is fantastic.
Joe Pesci in Goodfellas.
He didn't think he was going to win at all, so he prepared nothing. And this is the 6th shortest speech in Oscar history, where he just said,
Oh, it's my privilege, thank you.
and then left the stage, which I think is fantastic.
For anyone that's interested, the shortest speech is by Patty Duke, who won Best Supporting Actress for The Miracle Worker.
Thank you.
There's a hell of an opportunity here for someone to just say thanks.
Thanks, yeah.
I'm outright.
Cheers. Top.
And then just nothing.
Ja.
And then in 1998, Joe Pesci milked every last drop out of Goodfellas and released a song called Wise Guy, in which he seriously raps about being a wise guy.
Yeah.
Have you heard it?
Yeah.
No.
Well, for you then, Matt, here it is.
Her mother didn't like me, I never gave a fuck. Her brother didn't like me, I hit him with a truck. Her sister was a girl, everybody got a ride.
He turned out to be a deer, so I had to chop the hoof. So I went to my mum's. Whatever, rhyme that.
They should have played that over the end credits of The Irishman.
Yeah.
Paid with the stash, treat all my bras like trash. You'll catch a blast if you move too fast.
That's the wise guys, but we should also mention Lorraine Bracco, who plays Henry's long-suffering wife, Karen Hill.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
She was nominated for an Oscar for the film, Lorraine Bracco. Is she good as Karen?
Yeah. Yes, I think she's great. Because, I mean, let's be honest, like, without her, the film would just be a big sausage fest. It would just be all about the guys. And I know she was really stressed about that because she thought if she didn't make the absolute most of the role, Karen was likely to end up on the cutting room floor above everything else. So I think it's tribute to her that didn't happen. And I love her in this. It's such a fierce performance. Like when she gives Henry what for in the street in front of his mates.
It was Friday, it was this Friday, and you agreed, so you're a liar.
That's amazing, that. Totally demolishes him. And then...
And she gives him what for in the prison as well.
Let her do it. Let her do it.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, brilliant.
That's great.
And when she has that paranoia that Jimmy is sending her down the alley to be whacked.
I'll come back later.
That's brilliant, that.
Yeah.
She owns that scene amazingly well. Great performance.
And I mean, Bracco went a bit method as well, same as De Niro did. And she demanded that the real jewellery was used for Karen's outfit, and also like all real jewellery was used wherever you see it, really, just so she got a feel for the character. And she said to Scorsese, if you want me to portray a princess, treat me like one, which is great.
Good for her.
I just love the way she does try all the way through. She tries her best to just be the best wife she can be, and then finds out all of these things that are pushing against her, but she's still going, you got a whore! You got a whore in the building!
You are nothing but a whore.
It's fucking great. It's fucking brilliant. When you wake up and she's pointing the gun at him like that, it's just fucking... One of them takes, like, you pushed her off the bed, the gun left and hit Michael Ballhaus right in the face. He said, can we do one more take of that? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, she also did some improvising of her own, Lorraine Bracco. She said that she improvised this. She didn't tell really what she was going to do it, so his reactions improvised as well.
all right. Brilliant.
Go to your ready-made horse. That's all you're good for.
There's an even bigger cast in Goodfellas too. Paul Sorvino as Paulie, Catherine Scorsese as Tommy's mother, Frank Vincent as Billy Bats, and Michael Imperioli as Spider all have their moments. But in those main four, excellent work, I think, from the cast.
Excellent work, yeah.
Top of the line from all of
Sure
them.
hands, easy.
And that's all for part 2. You don't want to stop here though. Join us again for the concluding part 3, where we'll be talking about our highlights from the film and giving our final scores out of 10. Nobody wants to miss that, surely.
No,
Oh,
absolutely not.
definitely not.